look at things and try and look at things from different angles and not always where you're standing from. Especially when it comes to why hasn't this happened for me, or why doesn't this person whatever. Try and see it from the other side, or from a different side, because often our views are very biased because we genuinely just want the best for ourselves. So perspective helps us have a wider view on how other people are operating based on taking their view into consideration, I guess.
From CNR JUTA De BEER, imini umsindisi wesiko, umvelisi mnqango umelisi wesizwe, formerly known as Lwazi Madonsela, bringing you a show about creative entrepreneurs live from the landmark that not only birth SA street culture but also formalize the street hustle. On today's episode we have Hakim Malema. CNR JUTA De BEER umsindisi wesiko special edition. Hakim Malema. Oh my God, it really happened. Oh my God, I'm grateful that it finally happened at this moment in this exact time. We're grateful to be in 2022, not sound preachy or anything, but this is a leader, a pioneer, a game changer, a killer, a maker. Yo, he did it. I think that's how everyone should address you right now. You should identify as he did it.
By the will of God, it is continuing to be done.
Inshallah.
Mashallah.
Mashallah. I'm trying to learn the Allah.
No. So, inshallah is it will happen. So,
okay.
Like God willing. And then mashallah is like it's happened. So, I'm saying mashallah that we are here. But yes, inshallah, we will fight, man.
We'll fight.
Yeah.
You always speak about systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
You speak about systems of athleticism, how important it is for you to have a routine, to get stuff done, to have a pattern and a flow to how you create. How does one implement systems as a young creative?
Okay, nice question. When you're young, you have so much youthful spontaneity, and then sometimes you don't know what to do with that, and then you end up feeling like you're wasting your energy. So a way to kind of develop that is to have things in your life that force you into systems. For me, it was sports, like from a young age. Just being in teams, being in structures, teaches you how to deal with people, teaches you about hierarchy, who's in charge, who are your competitors. It teaches you about yourself, your resolve, like where's your pain threshold, how much you can take, like where you feel a breaking point. So for me, that was like the starting point of that, because as a student in school, I was not a great student, not because I was stupid, but because I struggled to focus. Like concentration has always been a big thing for me. So I guess I'm not going to say which doctors diagnosed me, but I was diagnosed with ADHD as a youngster, and subsequent to that, I was put on like I would suppose focus calming drugs like Ritalin and stuff, So this was a really interesting phase of my life because I'm like 12, 13 years old. I've like spent the whole of primary school now up until now before high school, pretty much just being just free as a bird, just like being who I want to be whenever I want to be. And that was obviously, no one wanted to deal with that. So they were like drugs. So being on those drugs changed my perspective on like how my brain functions. I didn't enjoy it, but it was an insight on how to concentrate. And I could see now that I can be my own worst enemy. So I need to start doing things to maximize on the energy, the youthful energy that I have. So I can't waste time. I need to learn how to read so that I can take more knowledge and retain more knowledge. I need to like learn how to sit and listen to someone, because that is another way that you like learn from people, So I realized that as much as like my energy is a gift, there's also the concentration part that is a bit of like a curse, gift and a curse vibe. So this is probably where I started learning and having the self-awareness around I need to put markers, barriers in place so that I need to live sustainably while still being fun and happy and energetic. So I think that was really like the formation and the foundation of that. And the next very fundamental building block after like going to different occupational therapists and like, reading specialists and whatever was actually spirituality, which I took quite quickly to as a teenager. And even more than the other things, that gave me a lot of like focus and just understanding of like, especially when I came into contact with like Eastern religions, like Buddhism, where meditation is a big part of the practice, and that's really you just being with yourself, and the the two things that I took out of that were suffering is part of life. So, I mean, at the stage when I found Eastern religion, I did resonate with that because my father died when I was 16. So I was like, yeah, life is suffering. And then the second thing is attachments, like learning to not be attached. Not that you don't want things or want to do things, but not being attached to things. So, yeah, those were like very deep things, for a youngster to come to terms with. But for some reason, I resonated with that stuff, and it did a lot for like just calming me down internally and still being able to access those energetic places that we all have, those like places of creativity and those infinite spaces that we have in our minds and in our souls. You can't access those places on a regular basis if you don't work on the self-awareness, because those things are inner things. Those are not outward things.
As a vessel of creativity, what do you think your role is in this life? What's the one thing you feel like you were sent to do?
So, in the beginning, it was to absorb and learn as much as possible, so that it gets to a point where you start leaking information. You can't hold so much anymore that it just like seeps out of you. And I think like that's how I feel nowadays, because I'm always still in the process of learning, but I have quite a big volume of knowledge that I've been able to retain. I feel like sometimes even in random conversations, it's just coming out of me, and I don't always realize how helpful it is. But I think it's because I'm not trying to tell somebody what to do. I really think that there's this thing that they can do. I don't know, like I see the potential, in almost everybody, I think. And I think when I don't see the potential in people, I'm probably not looking at it in myself. I think when I'm very critical of people and very judgmental of people, I'm doing that to myself as well. And when I find myself in a place where I'm being kinder to myself and I'm approaching myself in a less judgmental way, and almost just like still doing the things I need to do, but letting life kind of take lead as far as the pace, then you start noticing, I start noticing that when I have conversations with people, they have like these, oh shit, I kind of thought that, but maybe I didn't have the language to put that together, or you've contextualized it for me. And it wasn't even intentional, but it is intentional, because I don't want to, when I'm speaking to people, waste people's time or make people feel like they are less or not worthy. I think that is the general basis of the interactions that I want to have with people.
Yeah. And then,
so to answer your question, it's that it is to try and reflect as much honesty and truth, and hopefully, make you see something good about yourself through having that conversation with me. Leave lighter after we have an engagement. I don't want you to leave. I think that's an important role.
And then how do you go from, you were a scholar of the game, you were analyzing everything internationally, locally, you were part of it. How do you break the big bro barrier? A lot of people get stuck in admiring shit and never start doing shit.
Okay, so that one is probably touchy. So the people who I looked up to for the longest time, at some point there was disalignment. And that's because for me, I've got fundamentals, ethics, and values that are not shifting. Those things ground me permanently. So once I'm at an impasse with people around those things, I have to move on. It's not even a bridge burning. It's not even like a beef or anything. It's actually just a self-awareness exercise to be like, we don't align on these things anymore. So there's no point continuing that, because there will be resistance. And resistance is what I don't want resistance. I want things to flow, So, for example, like the other day, this comic said this thing, and I was like, fuck, I agree with this. He was like, I went to a party, and like there were these guys. Then they were like, yo, OG, and he was like, yo, I ain't no OGs here. You know what I'm saying? We young fly niggas. And I was like, I feel like that. I don't want to be big broed. I never really big broed other people. I always try to treat everyone like on a similar vibe. And I think for that reason, it's probably why a lot of like oaks younger than me feel like very close to me, because I never put that barrier there of like Sunning Hill, you know. I never said niggas to Sunning Hill just
Sunning
outside
Hill with the O.
Yeah, just outside of Four Ways. Nah, it was always like just open. And I think even what I expected from them was the same thing. And then even with the older generation, I knew I could learn a lot from them. But this goes back to what I was saying earlier about like knowing your place. You know, I feel like that's something that's very controversial in this time that we live in, because it's like you can do anything, you can be anything. It's like, yeah, you as an individual have the capacity for unlimited things. But when you start identifying spaces that you want to play in and activate in, those spaces have rules. And if you go there with your anarchist attitude, yeah, for a little bit of time, people will be intrigued or whatever by that. But over time, people will be like, you're disrupting the calmness that this thing has, the stability. So you need to learn how to kind of manage that anarchist flair or that individuality, because you're going to isolate yourself if you go into all of those places and try and like take over, hostile takeover. You know what I mean? So for that reason, I think I never treated anyone with an ageist mentality. So even like now, I look really young. Other day I was with a client. They said I looked like 10 years younger. I told them my age. They said I look like 10 years younger. I was like, this is it. You know what I mean? Like we found the glitch in the matrix. You know what I mean? Because
you and Pharrell went to the same waters.
I bought the face cream, guys. I bought the face cream. So I'm taking these rings off because they're gonna be noisy. I bought the face cream.
You bought the face cream.
Yeah.
You don't want to be sunned. You don't want to take anyone to Sunning Hill. But how do you take people to the water, the financial waters? Because you're an agency now. You're a big deal in terms of the role you're playing in the company, your company that you're part of. How do you then maintain that structure? Because it's one thing to have a great idea to sustain you and the homie. It's another thing to have a great idea that sustains families, people, children.
So, to that point, what you just described has happened. Both have happened. So we went through a period where there were people who were reliant on us and what we were doing to make things happen, and there was an interruption that happened, that took place, which forced us to kind of scale down. So yes, there was a time where that was the reality, and in fact, I felt quite comfortable in that reality, because I was I don't know, maybe I was getting off on it. Maybe I was getting off on the fact that, you know, like you and the people that you're working with at the helm of this thing are like, in your little small way, reducing unemployment and making sure that people like have livelihoods. And I don't know if everybody thinks like that when they're running a business. I definitely do. I felt very, very shit for a long time when we had to let our team go due to circumstances that were like taking place. And that was like a very hard thing to deal with, like emotionally, because of how invested I was like in those people. And I really did care about them, and it wasn't just a oh shit, you know, discard vibe. So, excuse me. So yeah, that was like very tough to deal with. And this year's been a lot of like taking those learnings, rebuilding, building new relationships. You know, I really used to feel that relationships were always in the past, but they are more relationships. You know, like if you can keep going into situations being optimistic and honest to a point, because people will try to fuck with you when you have those values and ethics. They'll think it's like a point of weakness. But I think the thing is, it's easier said than done. It's not about being the bigger person. It's like wanting to sleep at night. That's really what it comes down to for me. I want to be able to like just sleep at night and know that I never intentionally, fundamentally try to fuck anyone. That's important. And I think that as a fundamental business tactic and practice is probably the answer to your question, because what do we want to do for people? We want to be able to build structures and infrastructure and systems that people can thrive in, and that you don't need a person at the center of that thing for that thing to work. You know, I think that's what's important. We've got this very charismatic leader-centric model in South Africa where it's around the guy that's doing it. You know, like he becomes the hero. He goes to, and I'm saying he intentionally because it's mostly some dude, you know, and he's the one that's like at the lorries and doing all of this stuff. And then you find when you have conversations with people that on the trickle down, there isn't that intrinsic real care for people, and like, because the company is the people, not the work.
Yeah. You being a corporate company man, how do you stay a fan of the game? Because now you're in the boardroom, you're realizing that the streets don't got budget like that. This doesn't add up with this. This brand actually doesn't stand for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that the kids believe in. How do you still stay a fan in situations like that? Because you're still trying to put in the best kid if you have the opportunity to.
For sure. I think one thing that I've learned is that just truly being interested in stuff. But I guess I hear your question now, because after time you could become jaded or whatever the case is. Yeah, that is true. I did go through like quite a jaded phase. You know what the thing is about us? It's like we really inquisitive. We really want to know stuff. We didn't just start the things we start for glorification or whatever the case is. Maybe you didn't stay there, but for the most part, and I know this to be true about a lot of people that are in this diaspora that you've brought together, is that these people are truly enthusiasts around photography, film, art, fashion, product. There's like a really strong core group of people who are truly interested, and I think I formed part of this group because I was even talking to Urban Mosadi downstairs. I saw when I was getting this juice. She introduced me to someone.
Urban Mosadi, come to the show.
She wants to, actually. She said she loves your show, so I think it could happen. She was introducing me to somebody downstairs, and like the line she used was funny. She said like one of the original cool kids, and it's funny because it's like it reminds me of that series that Kid Cudi was on. What was it? How to Make It in America. Yeah, it's like this core group of like weirdos that end up going all over everywhere, which is like the premise of the show, you know, like to go back and like make people realize that it's not a mistake that like Cedric's got a billboard in BRAAM, because Cedric used to shoot down here.
He had 3 at the same time.
Like going, like
Cedric, come to the show.
So, you know, those things are not mistakes. So she was saying that, and I was like, damn, it made me realize that I'm truly interested, because even wanting to do this, I think there might be people who are like, I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure they like, I'm beyond this at this point or whatever, which would be a foolish take, but I mean, they're out there.
They're out there. They don't reply. They say, "Now we'll come," and it's cool. We got Hakim now.
And I think even a testament to the peeps that do pull up, it's like you want to see it, man. You really want to see it. Like you want to see what Swank is doing. You want to see what the other thing is. You can't help that. You're actually a little bit nosy. Yeah, you can't help that. Like, because you have this thing of like, you want to know, like, where's the Joe? Like, there was a time where there was no tickets, bruh. It's just like links. And then you see now, okay, there's parties that do that, like, you know, adopting the model. But back then it was like really just in a little corner somewhere. And if you really wanted to go, you're going to go. And I think that's really the thing. It's just that curiosity that just cannot be quenched for vibes.
Do we have a future of creativity with the level of egos right now? Because I feel like we lose in community every day. There's less and less people rallying behind something because we've all got into the norm of, I can do that myself. I don't need his expertise. I can creative direct, model, and then set the time and take the picture myself.
That's going to be a difficult thing to reverse engineer, because the last like 10, 15 years have been, that's the premise, you know, you don't need anyone, do it yourself. That's the whole like DIY YouTube mandate. But I think it was misunderstood from the perspective of, no one's saying do it alone. It's like you just don't need huge support. like you guys amongst yourselves, that's how I interpreted it, can make it happen. You don't need to go to the brand to make a brief. Like, even starting out thinking like that might be the shortcoming, you know? Just doing projects for project's sake. Just for like...
So we're an Instagram creative director. That was a beautiful era because it allowed everyone to express what they felt like brands could be.
Yes.
From their perspective.
Yes.
And then how did you know when you were a trash god of trash that, yo, I need to graduate to Tokyo Black. I need to graduate to Hakim in the boardroom. What was that thing that said, yo, it's time for the next step? Because I feel like a lot of us are doing things which are growing because you start at one point. It's like with school, right? You're starting, but because we're in the streets, we don't know that it's grade 7 now. A lot of us stay stuck in grade 1 and 2 because your skills have improved, the budget has improved. How do we know that it's time to go to high school? How did you know?
So I knew around the time where I had this divergence in ethics and values with a lot of people around me, and it was almost an easy decision to make, to be like, I've gained a lot from this moment. I don't know if it is going to continue giving value and if I can even add value to that situation anymore. So I need to just wander a little. So I wandered. And you know what's a great thing about going to new places is like you can like reinvent yourself. You can dump some of the old habits and characteristics that maybe you use as coping mechanisms in social environments. And you can truly be who you want to be. And that was me when I moved to Europe for a couple of months, more than a couple, with my fiance.
Fiance, come to the show. I don't want to name drop.
I love it. So we went to Europe and we had an amazing time. She was cultivating her music DJing career. I was going to go work at Heist Nobiety at the time, and just being around all new people that I didn't know, that didn't know me, I could like shape my new personality around the things that I believe in, not based on the coping mechanisms that I was talking about, coping here socially. So I developed quite a strong sense of myself out there, which is probably around the time where Trash God died. Because Trash God was like born here, you know. Also, it is a very like Joburg concept. Like the Trash Gods are the recycling cats that basically clean the city up because the city can't clean itself up. You know, they're doing the Lord's work. And like in any ecosystem, even in nature, it will always fix itself. There will always be organisms, creatures that will clean the thing up. So those guys are gods because they have made a living out of our waste. Yeah, so I'm super fascinated with human behavior because this is very much linked to the whole thing of wanting to understand systems and those kind of things. Because when you put in compound work over a long period of time, what you're doing is you're building a base for the future, whatever your skill set is or whatever it is you're building. But what you're also doing is you're allowing yourself the time to, like when you're so programmed in something, this can be a bad or good thing, but I'm talking about when it manifests in a healthy way. When you're so good in your routine, there's times where you go into like a flow state where you're not thinking about what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just like being. And that's the thing with doing, like you said, I'm a serial doer. I feel like I'm a serial communicator because I've been misunderstood so much in my life. And I used to blame people for it. Like, you guys are stupid, you don't understand the words I'm using or whatever it is. But it's also me not being able to get across because I don't want to understand you. Maybe I'm selfish. Maybe I just want you to understand me.
I want you to myself, I can't help it.
Yeah. So now it's more like, I want to understand people as well. Because if I understand them, I feel like I understand myself better. You know? And that's also was a big turning point in my life. Because I think I was very self-absorbed for a long time around my own thoughts and ideas because I felt I had superior thoughts and ideas and concepts, you know, going on in my head. But superiority in any kind of thing is subjective, and also it's obsolete because only God is superior. You know,
The Most High.
the Most High.
When BRAAM GENERATION, the kids are always asking one question. How do I formalize? How do I get my ideas beyond me applying for a job at agency? How do the kids do that, Hakim?
There's a number of ways that I've experienced. So it's not like I'm inventing a new thing here talking to you. One way, truly, is interning. Finding a willing master, let's call it, teacher, who you will be willing to be very low maintenance under.
No one ever factors the part that they have to play, the responsibility that comes with being an intern.
Absolutely. Like being low maintenance is a huge part of it, because this person doesn't want to take on more problems. They might see an opportunity for potential here, but it hasn't realized itself yet. So both of you need time. So your capacity to be not a high maintenance is gonna give you longevity in that situation. And what is that situation? That situation is giving you like a hyperbolic chamber to hone the skills that you wouldn't be able to hone in another circumstance. Because if you go to a job, that is not the same scenario. There's a probation period, there's money involved.
Yeah.
So now the stakes are different. You should be applying all the time, but you should be applying for jobs when, let me start that again. You should be applying for jobs when you feel strongly in your capacity, but not only. That's what I'm saying, because I know there's like a lot of misdirection in terms of CVs on LinkedIn, right? They're going to ask you all these things and people say, apply anyway. I agree with that. But while you're doing that, build the skills so that when you do get called up, you don't feel like, what am I going to do? That's basically the thing. And where are you going to do that? You're going to do that interning, whatever, free work. Sometimes you don't even have to intern, and this is where systems come in, because you can do this on your own, but it's hard. Like you have to take out time from your internet scrolling or whatever it is to
discipline.
Yeah, like learn Adobe, Photoshop or whatever. Like these are the things I'm talking about, where initially before you even approach, because approach is based on confidence, and this is like where people jump the gun. You go straight to, how do I talk to whoever? And it's like, what are you going to talk about when you get there? What are you saying? Like, what's your conversational depth? So now it's like, oh, what? You think it's like, okay, try it. These guys will cook you, right? Because they're so well-traveled, they're well-knowledge. They'll marinate you, as they used to say.
You're a child of JUTA De BEER. This is where you made your voice prior, Tokyo Black, when you were Trash God. This is how you met a lot of your previous community. And this is where you got your inspiration, your wings, essentially. Do you still think we need this place as a breathing ground?
100%. The resurgence was super important. Like, obviously there's difference of opinion on how that happened, but that's always going to be like that. You see this all over the world, like in Harlem that happened, in Shoreditch in London. This like kind of gentrifying of places, but it's keeping the places alive. And you asked a question earlier about how do people come together and formalize. There's the apprenticeship thing, but there's also what people were doing in BRAAM at the time, just learning from each other. Just like meeting up at the same place every day, and like knowing that there's going to be those people there, and knowing that something could pop off. That's part of the optimism. Those things are what made this place what it was. It's like people were coming here most of the time, a lot of the time, not knowing, until the opportunities started presenting themselves. But before then, it was just like, I know I can meet so-and-so, I know I can do so-and-so, we can talk about this or whatever. And that is crucial, because like, where's the pot melting? Like, where's the crucible? It's not Rosebank. Like, Rosebank is like more like see, like when you do the research for the activation, that's in BRAAM, but you have the activation in Rosebank. Do you get what I'm saying?
Hey, yo, what's your word to the youth?
Was that one crazy?
Yeah, that one was crazy.
But you gotta keep that one.
I'm keeping it.
Okay, that
But
one.
what's your word to the youth?
My word to the youth is positivity. It sounds cliche, but it's really about perspective. Or maybe that's the word, actually. It's perspective. Because positivity can be subjective. I think my word to the youth is perspective. Look at things and try and look at things from different angles and not always where you're standing from. Especially when it comes to why hasn't this happened for me, or why doesn't this person whatever. Try and see it from the other side, or from a different side, because often our views are very biased because we genuinely just want the best for ourselves. So perspective helps us have a wider view on how other people are operating based on taking their view into consideration, I guess.
Hakim Malema, Josh God, Tokyo Black. However, I'm glad you weren't controversial. Kiggy was counting you out in terms of being PC, but Kiggy, we did it.